In 1967, the Beatles embarked on their very own private magical mystery tour here in Greece. Apple director Peter Brown recalled how he took a call from John in July declaring that the Beatles were moving out of England. They were talking about how sick and tired they were of the notoriety and how restrictive it was to live in London. John suggested they escape it all by creating their own little kingdom. Yanis Alexis Mardas, otherwise known as Magic Alex, was a Greek TV repairman and self-professed inventor who developed a close friendship with John. Magic Alex's father was a major in the Greek secret police. He told them that as a result, the Beatles would have access to Greek government connections. Magic Alex phoned Peter Brown a few days later to report that he'd found a place God had created just for them. It was a tiny cluster of islands 25 miles out into the Aegean. There was a large main island with 4 secluded beaches and 5 smaller satellite islands surrounding it. There were also 16 acres of rich olive groves on the large island. Alex claimed that he had struck a deal with a government official where the Beatles would be given VIP treatment and not searched at the airport if they posed for a set of publicity pictures for the Ministry of Tourism to show how benevolent Greece was. In effect, diplomatic immunity in exchange for an endorsement of the junta. Brian was opposed to the idea, but all 4 Beatles ended up in Athens together with their wives, except Ringo's, girlfriends and their inner circle. The trip was well documented in Beatles Monthly by George and Mal Evans. John and Paul stayed at Alex's father's house in suburban Athens. All 4 Beatles spent 2 days touring around Athens, besieged by photographers tipped off by Magic Alex. The luxury cruiser which Alex had hired on their behalf had been held up in a storm off the Cretan coast. Ringo missed the boat trip as he had to leave early to be with Maureen as their second child was due imminently.
We rented a boat and we drove this boat up and down the coast from Athens looking at islands, and we came to this island that we'd arranged to go and see.
George recounted, "It was a great trip. John and I were on acid all the time, sitting on the front of the ship playing ukuleles. Greece was on the left, a big island on the right. The sun was shining and we sang Hare Krishna for hours and hours." According to documents held at the National Archives in England, the main island was Aegios, although no island of that name appears to exist. It was apparently surrounded by 5 small unnamed offshore islands upon which the Beatles were to have separate villas. 3 months earlier, the democratic Greek government had been overthrown in a military coup, leading to a brutal regime. Unconcerned, John declared, "I'm not worried about the political situation in Greece, as long as it doesn't affect us." Any misgivings from Paul were outweighed by more selfish concerns. Paul wrote in Many Years From Now, "I suppose the main motivation would probably be that no one could stop you smoking. Drugs was probably the main reason for getting some island." The Beatles needed to buy export dollars before applying to the Greek government for permission to spend them. The £90,000 worth of dollars was sold back to the government, and the value had risen, given the Beatles £11,400 profit. George joked that it was the only time that the Beatles ever made any money on a business venture. There are some very touching images of John and Uncle Paul together with Julian in Greece. In fact, it seems the last time we see the Beatles carefree and relaxed in each other's company before the sad death of Brian Epstein. Paul celebrated his 80th birthday aboard a yacht off Mykonos, whilst George would continue to regularly holiday in Greece. And George was suitably impressed to write a song about the country on his Gon Troppo album.
From the Athena handed on plate